Well, my father had gone to to an education conference in Tokyo, and it was an international conference, and when he was there, he got very friendly with a Dr. Lamkin, who was president of a small teachers' college in Missouri, in Maryville, Missouri. So they got quite friendly. So after the conference was over, the Lamkins, he and his wife, were coming through Manila on their way back home. So naturally, my father invited them to the house for a small family dinner. And so they came. I was then 18 years old. I was a sophomore in the local University of the Philippines. And we were there. We were seated around the table chatting, and Dr. Lapkin happened to sit in front of me. So more or less, he had a lot, chance to talk to me personally. So we were chatting, and all of a sudden, he tells me, "How would you like to go to school in the States?" Then before I could answer, he said, "I'll give you a scholarship. Free everything, tuition, dormitory, everything. Your father needs to pay is your transportation." And he was talking to me. The idea must have just occurred to him. And he didn't even say it to my father. And me being young and fresh, so I said, "Well, yes, if I can bring two of my friends." And he said, "All right, I'll give them scholarships to you. Choose. You choose them." And that very night, I was calling my two best friends. And in 3 weeks, we were on our way to the States. And that's it. That's how it happened. I got the scholarship, not because I was especially bright or anything. So we went to the States, I and my two best friends. In those days, it took 21 days by boat. So we went on this President Polk, landed in Seattle. My father had arranged for some Rotary friends of his, Americans who lived in Seattle, met us, took us around. We first saw our first apple tree. Excitement, we ran out to look at all the apples, and we were so excited. Then we took the transcontinental train. And of course, going through the snow. At the time, I think it was almost middle of November. Then we saw our first snow. And actually, it's the first time we had been out of the country. And then in St. Louis, we changed trains to a little dinky little train, a real dinky. And it was midnight. And it was really, as far as we were concerned, we were scared to death. And then there were some drunken sailors. It was awful. Anyway, we got to Maryville at midnight. And this young professor, who was a sort of protege of Dr. Lamkin, and who later became really we used to call him uncle, because he was our foster father practically. So he met us, took us to the dorm. And we learned later that all the girls at the dorm had stayed up. It was already past midnight when we got there, just to see the Filipino girls come in with their grass skirts. And then when they saw us, they said they were so disappointed because we were all in skirts and sweaters and saddle shoes, the uniform of the time. And they said, "Oh, come on, they look exactly like us." And they all went to bed. They were so bored because they thought they'd see us in our grass skirts. We had a great time. Well, we were treated in the beginning like celebrities. Naturally, we were the first foreigners, not just Asians, the first foreigners, these people. This is Middle West USA before the war. And about 80% of the young people had not even seen the ocean, would you believe? I mean, they saw the ocean when they joined the services later. But these kids had never seen the ocean. They were mostly farmers' children. And they lived in what they call Maryville, Missouri, in the heart of the United States. That's the motto of the town. 100 miles north of Kansas City, in the heart of the United States. And that's exactly, almost literally, in the middle of the continent, real Middle West, you know. So you can imagine, the only foreigner in town was one Greek restaurant owner. Not a single foreigner, in fact, and much less an Asian, much less 3 Asian girls. So when we came, we were in the front page of the newspaper. Filipino girls arrive. I had the clipping some years back. There we were, the 3 of us, interviews, what we thought. And the funny part, they asked me what I thought of American football, and I kept referring to football as rugby, because that's how the British version. I kept saying, well, they don't play rugby in the Philippines. Oh, we were celebrities for the first few weeks, big special treatment, and then started all the invitations to talk before church socials, Kiwanis, Rotaries, Elks, you name it. Every weekend we had to speak before some group. And of course, we had boned up on this, how many islands, and then of course there's a question and answer. We have to answer all kinds of, sometimes rather stupid questions, and we have to. And then we even boned up on folk dancing, because we had to dance folk dances and everything else, you know. Oh, absolutely. Their ignorance was limitless, you know. And they'd ask, where were the Philippines, and what food, and what, everything. They were really very curious about it. And this was before the war, when really Americans, especially in the Middle West, they were quite insular. They really had no exposure to anything else but the American way of life. So they asked everything. They would, this question and answer things would go on for hours. We had a very normal college social life, went to all the college dances. In the first dance, a prom at that time, the first dance we attended, they fixed up blind dates for us. I suppose they were the best behaved boys in town or something. I remember I had a date, a tall and very good looking boy. His name, I don't know if he still exists. His name was Alan Kelso. I can't forget him. And then we went to a fraternity dance. In those days, everybody in long gown and very formal. Then, after that, as we got better acquainted, well, we went on dates normally as most girls in the dormitory did, and everything else that the other girls did. Oh, I had a lot of boyfriends that I used to go out on dates. There was this special nice boy who used to sing to me, Genie with the dark brown eyes instead of the light brown hair. But let's not go into that. I told you, it'll embarrass my children. At any rate, we had a very good time. We had a lot of friends, made a lot of friends, and we were very close. We were very, very close. Our gang in the dormitory, we were about 8 or we were about 10. We used to go home to their homes on weekends, spend weekends with them, and the normal life of college kids. I don't know. We'd take car trips we'd go to Kansas City, that's traveling, of St. Louis. And I remember we went on an excursion to attend some kind of students' conference in Indiana. And we thought that was traveling enough. And for the girls, the American girls in our group, that was as far as they ever went. These are kids who had grown up in Missouri and stayed there.